Thank you for staying with us. Now, that's, of course, you've seen the topic. It's what we're talking about next. A recent report by OXFAM says that inequality is contributing to the death of at least 21,000 people each day, or one person every 4 seconds. Now, according to this information by OXFAM, the finding is based on the death globally from lack of access to healthcare, gender-based violence, hunger, and climate breakdown. We have to talk to us about this trend and how it can be reversed. Dr. Vincent Ahonsi, who is country director, OXFAM International. He joins us virtually from Ikorodu this morning. Thanks for joining us, Doc.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Well, this is most certainly staggering. A question anyone would want to ask first is, how did we come to this conclusion?
Thank you so much. We come to this conclusion. This is an evidence-based finding. We don't just wake up one day and say, this is what is happening. We did our research globally. We verify it. We authenticate it. And of course, we come to the conclusion that this is what is happening. And what is happening now is that every 4 seconds of the day, just like you have said, inequality contributes to the death of a human being. And we are not saying this for the fun of it. What is inequality that we are talking about? Inequality in the layman's language simply means the gap between the rich who are getting richer and the poor that are getting poorer every day. The rich that are stupendously getting richer, that have all things at their beck and call, and the poor that cannot even afford 3 square meals a day, just like we have discussed earlier today in your former program. So this gap has always been there, but never in the history of man has it become so obvious and so threatening to the security of the world, to the humanity itself, and to the planet. That is why OXFAM come forward and say, look, we need to let the people know that inequality in this case cannot continue. The governments of the world need to do something about it. Like I was saying, inequality is a thing that has always been there in some form, but the pandemic has now brought it to the fore in a more devastating way, in a more sobering way, and in a more pathetic way. Before COVID-19 struck, the 10 richest men in the world, if you put their collective wealth together, amounts to about $700 billion. I will tell you, between mid-2020, which is mid-March 2020, when the pandemic started, at least majorly in Africa, and now, they have doubled their wealth from $700 billion to $1.5 trillion. Now you ask me, what is the difference? The difference is that these 10 men are making, in the average, $1.5 billion every day. As if that is not sobering enough, millions and millions of people have been dragged from the middle class to the poverty equation. Now, can we bring that to Nigeria? What are we talking about? Let's bring it home. In Nigeria, the 3 richest men in Nigeria today, during the pandemic, between mid-March 2020 and now, they have increased their wealth by $6.9 billion. At the same time, 7.4 million people have now been dragged into extreme poverty, not ordinary poverty, extreme poverty. As I speak to you today, Sister Alero, the 2 richest people in Nigeria have more wealth than 63 million Nigerians at the bottom. And when we talk 63 million people, this can account for the population of maybe 4, 5, or 6 countries. That is what we're talking about. The rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer. And Nigerians now, before the pandemic, were called the capital of poverty in the world. Now, where are we? We are in a situation whereby our compatriots can no longer feed. Parents can no longer pay their children's school fees. Businesses are closing by the day. Farmers can no longer farm because of insecurity. Artisans can no longer run their business because Ikeja Electric has killed businesses in Ikorodu and environments and other places. And people are getting poorer and poorer by the day. This is not good for the polity. And government policy is not helping. Government policy is enabling the rich 1% to get richer and inadvertently enabling millions and millions of people to become poorer. We cannot be talking about how we are going to lift 100,000 people or 1 million.
But Doc, you know, the question that one may want to ask is, well, you have talked to us now about some trajectory over the years. The question I want to ask is, how do we begin to reverse the trend? What are the structures that government needs to put in place? What are the investments that need to be made, and who is supposed to make these investments? Is it just the federal government or the state government? You know, things like that. What are the issues to consider concerning this matter?
The issues that need to be considered now is at various levels. Yes, the government holds the key, right? Now, what many Nigerians don't know is that IMF has been going around through the back door to communicate with West African countries to ask them to start implementing austerity as a way to get out of this pandemic.
Wow.
That is not the way. Austerity can only drag more people into poverty, more millions and millions of people into poverty. So what is the way out? The way out, one, is that the government of the day should have the political will to step forward and say, we want to implement programs and policies that will benefit the majority, not the minority. And the ways to do this is, one, we have tax incentives that are being given to corporations in Nigeria, and it has been estimated that as much as 2.9 billion US dollars are lost by the country, that is Nigeria, on annual basis to tax incentives. That is the money Nigeria needs to cater for the majority. Now, another thing I talked about earlier on is the fact that these billionaires have amassed so much wealth. Why does it become difficult, or why is it difficult for the government to tax the rich? We are advocating that let the rich pay more. It is time to tax the rich. Stop taxing the poor. VAT, you have increased it from 5% to 7.5%. And VAT applies to goods and services that are enjoyed by the people in the middle class or ordinary people on the streets. Now, please look beyond the poor people. Look beyond the man on the street. Look beyond the woman on the street. Look at the rich. Just introduce annual wealth tax, a progressive annual wealth tax. As we speak, we have about 4,960 Nigerians whose wealth are about $5 million US dollar or less. At least they are up to $5 million. We have 245 Nigerians whose wealth are up to $50 million US. We have Nigerians whose wealth are over $1 billion US. We are saying the government should introduce a tax, a wealth tax, annual wealth tax of 2% to those who have $5 million US dollar. Those who have $50 million US dollar in wealth, just give them 5% tax. And those whose wealth are over 1 billion, let them apply 10%. By so doing, the government of Nigeria will be making 6.1 billion US dollar extra money annually. Add that to the 2.9 billion US dollar that are going to be saved from canceling all these tax incentives to corporations. We're talking about 9 billion US dollar here. Now, tidy that up and look at what is the budget for the country. Now spend more on social amenities. Look towards creating the fiscal space, right, where there will be flexibility and the government will be able to achieve a sustainable, inclusive, and just recovery post-pandemic. This is what we are asking for. We are advocating for policies that will advance gender justice, that will reduce inequality, that will put the people and the planet first. What Nigerian government needs to do is to look at their political will. We shouldn't be practicing politics with people's well-being and welfare. It is not fair. No country develops like that. Now, the billionaires themselves need to step forward. A couple of days ago, some millionaires gathered themselves together and said the truth. They said, look, government, you are not taxing us enough. We have the money. We want to be taxed more. Stop taxing the poor. Nigerian billionaires need to add their voice to that. Applying 10% of tax to your wealth does not make you poor. This is not corporate social responsibility. We are talking about your legitimate civic responsibility to be taxed. The government should have the political will. They shouldn't say they are our friends. Okay. They are probably our political, maybe they fund our political campaign or something. We are not saying that, but they should look beyond friendship. Okay, look at the majority of Nigerians.
Doctor, yes, some would say that what you are advocating is an uphill task. The stats you gave about 2 billionaires having the kind of money that 63 million have is stark. I mean, what kind of social amenities would you have in place that would reduce that number, for instance, from 63 million to, say, 50 million? And begin to go down like that till you attain what you would consider as equality.
Thank you so much, Sister Lero. One thing is this. The government has to provide the enabling environment for small and medium enterprises to thrive. Not in paper, not as a campaign gimmick. We are saying the government should step forward. There's a policy that the government has established or that has implemented that is impacting more on people of this country. The government, I don't know whatever terminology they give, privatization, commercialization, or whatever, or eventually they gave out NEPA. NEPA was given out, and they said they are going to sell it to individuals. They sold them, and after selling them, they ended up with discos and guescos, and I think one of them is Electric.
Discos and discos.
Right, or discos. Now, this is if you go around Nigeria, how you can develop the country is you can do it from the middle. A lot of people are small-scale entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. The artisans, the people who have cold rooms, who are selling fish, who are selling cold fish and all that. The people who have welding machines, the barbers, the tailors and all that. But what do we have? The government is not enabling them. First, when they try to establish their businesses, the local government jumps at them. And they are taxed here and there with about a dozen kind of taxes. As if that is not enough, you now have Ikeja Electric that is very powerful, sold to the rich and the powerful. And I will tell you, more businesses have folded up, have been closed by Ikeja Electric in the last couple of years than we can think of. On a daily basis, dozens of businesses, small-scale businesses are closing up. And these people are being dragged into the poverty line. They cannot cater for their family. The government has to step up.
Okay,
this is time to put more money.
Well,
yes, please.
Dr. Ahansi, what are the elements in this inequality issue that we're talking about? You've talked about electricity as an element. I mean, at least from the I can just allude that that's perhaps what you're talking about now, some of the shortfalls. So what are some of those things, those items, those characteristics that come together to mean inequality and how it is killing? What are those elements? What are those features or factors that people need to consider when you talk about inequality?
Thank you so much. I think when you talk about inequality, like I said, it borders on a lot of things. First, the ability of the people to be able to access healthcare, quality healthcare. Nigerian healthcare system has always or has been in a very pathetic position over the years, unfortunately. Our health systems are very weak. They do not cater for our health system spending is very weak. The Nigerian budget for health, I think it was about 5% last time I checked. That is abysmally low. And Abuja Declaration says a minimum of 50% of your budget should go to health. Agriculture in this country at a point we are having a budget of as low as 2%. Social spending has been Nigeria is one of the worst countries in terms of social spending on infrastructure. The roads have become death traps. That we know. The environment is not secured. People can no longer walk in the night. People can no longer travel in the night. Goods and services can no longer move freely across the country. These are the elements we're talking about. The people are scared. The people are afraid to move around. In the past, people could easily move from the south to the north and from the north to the south. It's no longer like that. The farmers can no longer go to the field to farm because many of our farmers are small-scale farmers. And those who have ventured to go to the farm to go and farm, at the end of the year, it's either some cattle come and eat up their crops, or some kidnappers will come and kidnap them for ransom, rape their wives, destroy their farmlands, and that has distorted the whole ecosystem, and they can no longer do this. A lot of people are now migrating to the cities to become Okada riders. And what is the government doing? What is the response we are getting from the government? We are hearing of palliatives. We are hearing of empowerment. It is so pathetic when government workers, when political office holders, when legislators now come and say, okay, they are giving palliatives, and they go out there, buy 5 kilos of rice or 2 kilos of rice and label it and start giving it to Nigerians as if Nigerians are now beggars. That is the laziest and most unfortunate and most callous way to treat your fellow compatriots. And some even go to those who are high amongst them will go to the point of buying a clipper or a wheelbarrow and give to an able-bodied young man, and you say you are empowering him. That is sad. How do we get here? The government has got to pick up his thinking cap and wear it. Enough of listening to all these praise singers. Enough of putting figures that are not existing.
Doctor,
we want to see.
Doctor,
yes,
it does appear that your advocacy now, the object of your advocacy, seems to be government. Because all the things you're talking about now, it seems that it is the government who's supposed to do all these things for the people. Am I correct, sir?
Thank you, Sister Alero. Our advocacy is majorly to the government because the government holds the stick and the carrot. That is it. We still advocate to the rich people it's like we are appealing to their conscience and say, look, you are not taking this wealth to wherever you are going after this lifetime. If you start eating dollar bills, don't eat rice, don't eat pounded yam, just put dollar bills or naira bills into your plate and eat it every day. You will never finish eating your money in your lifetime. What do you need it for?
Okay.
Go to Abuja Airport.
Okay.
So the advocacy is majorly government because the government is not having the political will to tax the rich. Why is it difficult for the government to do this? The government is of this country. It is easy for the government to tax the poor, but they are finding it difficult to tax the rich. That is, the government should be defending the poor. I tell you something, Sister Alero. The 1% richest people in the world, they emit more than 50%. Their carbon dioxide emissions is double that of 50% people that are at the bottom of the ladder, right? But the effect of climate change is felt by the poor. Go to the north, travel from Abuja down to Sokoto to Kano, you see what climate change is doing to the people, right? And yet, they are telling us that these billionaires are creating jobs. They are not creating jobs, as far as I know. If you want to create jobs, you have to create jobs that will be meaningful, green jobs that people will be able to do and have source of livelihood that can take care of their families. Not jobs that will put them in penury, not jobs that will endanger their lives.
Doc,
Nigerian billionaires need to step forward and speak. We want to hear their voice.
The question then is how will that be taken on? How are they going to also form a body called like patriotic billionaires, or is it patriotic millionaires in the US?
Of Nigeria.
Or is it just going to be patriotic millionaires in Nigeria? I don't know. How would you propose that they do that?
I would propose that Nigerian billionaires should step forward. Like we say in Nigeria, in the balance of it, we say everything is 6 feet. At the end of the day, whether you are rich or you are poor, it's 6 feet. They have to step forward. OXFAM is willing to facilitate a meeting of the billionaires in Nigeria. We want to hold meetings with them. We want to tell them how to do it. We want to assure them that being taxed does not mean that they are going to become poor. We want to ensure them that the society is not going to become socialist. We want to assure them that we are there with them. We want to assist the government. How can the government plug all these loopholes? We are talking about, earlier on, we were talking about fuel subsidy. For God's sake, people that cannot even afford to pay 100 naira for Okada, by the time you double the price of fuel, then how do they get 200 naira to climb Okada? People that cannot feed their children. By the time you double up on all these things, all these austerity measures, you are going to drag millions more of Nigerians into poverty. By and large, we have not even talked about the effect on women. That is another big one, right? Women and girls, they have been suffering in this country, not only in Nigeria, but Nigerians' case is so pathetic. And everything we do, we tend to forget women. The pandemic has set women back. Initially, there's inequality between men and women. We know it. We say it's going to take 99 years for women to catch up with men. Women collectively lost over $800 billion in wealth due to the pandemic. 1 women lost their income. They lost their job. And when women lose their job, they lose their income, they kind of lose their voice. And in a patriarchal society like Nigeria, where women unfortunately are being regarded as part of personal property to men, it is so unfortunate. More women are going to be subjected to sexual and gender-based violence because their voice is lost. They can no longer go to the farm to farm because people are there to kidnap and rape them. We have to shine light on them because these are our mothers, these are our sisters, these are our daughters.
Doctor, you said OXFAM is ready to facilitate a meeting of these rich people. Are you not being presumptuous? Because that would presuppose that you are assuming that these people are actually interested in reversing the trend.
Sister Alero, one thing we kind of say in Nigeria is, if you appeal to my conscience, yeah, because we can't just really claw the money out of their hands. It's only government that can really tax them appropriately in a progressive way. But in Nigeria, we are very religious in this country. We are either a very good Christian, or you are a good Muslim, or you are a good traditionalist. So you have a conscience. We are appealing to their conscience and saying, look, for goodness sake. That is why I made mention of the fact of 6 feet. At the end of the day, whether you have all the mansions, you have all the private jets in Abuja, you are not going to be buried with any one of them. Let's appeal to their conscience. Look, your fellow men and women are dying on a daily basis. They are dying of disease. They are dying of hunger. I saw a mother losing a child because of 1,500 naira in Kano. Very unfortunate. Not sorry, in Jibia in Katsina State, very close to Niger State. That was the first place I saw patients and I shed tears. You see children who are 8 months old, they are looking as if they are 80 years old due to malnutrition. These are our compatriots. We shouldn't just be approaching them when we need their votes. It is a moral burden on all of us who call ourselves Nigerians.
Okay.
To be eating, to be sleeping, to have this obscene wealth, and yet our brothers and sisters are dying on daily basis.
Well,
It
Doctor,
is unfortunate.
my apologies.
We're
running out of time, but I'd like you to address 2 issues very, very quickly. You talked about, women the other time. How do you, let's talk about the young people, the youths. How does this issue of inequality, how does it affect them, and how can they help?
Thank you so much. I particularly feel for Nigerian youth. In our time, things were not like this. Nigerian youths have got to a point where they are so hopeless and so helpless, unfortunately. Now you now see graduates who have good certificates just roaming the streets. 4 or 5 years, no job, no hope, and nothing. And nobody seems to be talking about it. A former president once said that this is a time bomb. Nigeria is not doing enough for these young people. We said this is the hope of the future. The hope of the future that we are not catering for, that we are not thinking about. It is high time we have to step forward. We have to have a roadmap. not on paper. We have to have a strategy to lift our youth. How do we train them, those who need to be trained? We are talking about human capital development. How do we train them to be able to be key into the ICT world? The tomorrow for billionaires, or the tomorrow of this world, is in the tech business. How do we practically doable things with timelines, and at the same time we have to have monitoring metrics? How can we develop programs that can lift these young ones off the streets? They are very energetic. They are willing to do something.
Okay.
The government is not thinking about it. So when it comes to the women, the youth of this country, my heart does for them, and my heart goes to them. The government needs to do more for them.
Okay.
The government is not doing enough.
All right, just one last thing, Dr. Honey. There is a reference in that report. By the way, the report we're under review, so to speak, is Inequality Kills by OXFAM. You can, just check it out online. Just type it, Inequality Kills, and then you can find out the one that's been done by OXFAM and take a look at what he is talking about. Now, you referenced in that report some measure of politics. It's a political year in Nigeria, and people are going to be deciding who they want as their governors in a good number of states and presidents come 2023. What are the things you would suggest, in line with what we are discussing now, that people should factor in when they are making a decision?
I think as we have gradually approached the election year, what Nigerians should be looking at is, please, for goodness sake, look beyond the man that will bring a bag of rice to you. Look beyond the man that will bring 5,000 naira to you. Let's look at those who are capable, those who have the desire to help Nigeria, those who have the programs. Don't look at wealth, please. Don't look at those who have been there before. We have gone through this for too long. If it's going to take a 35-year-old man, a poor woman, to fix this country, let us look at their direction.
Okay.
And INEC should try to de-emphasize money politics, so that those who are capable and who are able to do it will be able to step forward. Enough of this doing the same thing and expecting new results. It cannot happen.
Okay.
And lastly, please, we have to tackle our sexist laws in this country that discriminate against women and girls. Unfortunately, a senator in this country introduced a bill at the floor of the Senate, and every time she does, it gets thrown away. And what the legislators don't know is that as they throw it away along with millions and millions of women out there. Okay. Nigerian women deserve more than that.
Well,
Nigerian women are not property.
I'm very sure, Dr. Hansi, that we have not heard the last of that particular legislation. I'm pretty sure that each time you talk about women here, my colleague here is thumbing up for you, 2 thumbs up actually, to ensure that, just so you know that she's speaking for that gender. But for now, we have to thank you very much for bringing this to light and hoping that people will key into it. Dr. Vincent Ahonse is Country Director, OXFAM International. Thank you so much for your time and thoughts this morning.
Thank you for inviting me.
Right, so we're back after now. It's time to talk some more about some other thing. Stay with us.